Hi, this is J.D. Ingram of the Charleston Pipe Band, and I want to welcome you to my series on how to be a great piper in 3 steps. As a refresher, here is the tree diagram for our 3 easy steps. Stay tuned as we dive into today's topic. Part 1 of Step 2, maintaining your bagpipes. Why is it so important to maintain your pipes? The foundation of all tone comes from effective and efficient use of air, which is impossible if your pipes are in poor condition. What we're checking for here is, first and foremost, is your bag airtight? This is your reservoir of air. It absolutely has to be able to hold all of the air that you put into it and not leak any out. Second, are your hemp connections tight? Everywhere that you put hemp on something, so this is stocks, slides, reed seats, those are opportunities for air to go around rather than through the pipes or reeds that you want them to. And if they go around, that is wasted air, wasted effort, and reduces the possibility that you have of making good tone. And last but not least is, are your reeds calibrated? So we're playing 4 reeds at the same time. If these 4 reeds aren't set up to be ideally in the sweet spot for each reed at the same pressure, then no matter what pressure you're blowing at, one of your reeds doesn't sound as good as it could. And it's also possible that one or more reeds are set up to take a whole lot of air, while one or more reeds are set up to take not very much air at all. If they're set up to take a lot of air, they're going to allow a lot of air to escape, while the other 2 reeds are either being blown at the sweet spot or being overblown, which is arguably even worse. So having your reeds set up to all take the same amount of air makes sure that your pipes will have the best possible tone. How do we do that? These aren't really drills so much as tests. Pretty much every time you play, certainly at least once a month, once every couple months, bare minimum, maybe 2 to 3 times a year, you should test your pipes. Start with testing your bag for air tightness by blowing it up with only the blow stick in and everything else corked off. Then check all the hemp connections. We'll walk through which hemp connections need to be how tight and some tips on how to make sure they're tight. And then, of course, testing your reeds, testing your channel reed, figuring out how it is taking air, and then making sure your drone reeds match, because those are much easier to adjust.
All right, let's maintain some bagpipes. So I've got my pipes here. First thing I'm going to do is test the bag. So I'm going to get everything out except blow stick. Drones off. 1.
You can fast forward here. You guys know how to take your pipes out of your stocks.
All right, so I've got bag, cover, blow stick. Got my handy dandy box of goodies. I would recommend this style of organizer. This is a fishing lure organizer. It's got little inserts to make adjustable size containers, and I've got everything I need in here. So I've got sharp blades for shaving hemp, shaving reeds, or cutting hemp. I've got some reeds. I've got backup drone reeds, practice channel reeds, as well as pipe channel reeds. I've got earplugs. I have tape for the adjusting channel pitch, and I usually keep a couple pre-cut strips just stuck to the front. Got stocks, stock corks and drone corks, and what else do I have in here? Dental rubber bands for using as a bridle on a chanter reed. So all the good stuff. That's certainly not an exhaustive list of things that you might need, but it is a great starting place. All right, bag is corked, blowing it up. Arm like a basketball, and let's time it. Maybe I'll fast forward through this. All right, that's 30 seconds. barely fit any more air in there. I could just go. So that's pretty good. Let's skip ahead to a minute, see if it's still good. All right, there's 1 minute. Starting to wiggle a little bit. You can get just a touch more in. Not much at all though. I'm happy with this. Places that it might be leaking if it was leaking. Number one, the flapper valve. Almost everybody I know has had issues with the flapper valve at one point. A lot of times if you sit there and listen to your blow stick, you can hear it going out the back of the flapper valve, which tells you that it's not completely seated. And there's a couple ways that you can adjust flapper valves. It really depends on the type of flapper valve you have. One of the most reliable that I have found after having tried 3 or 4 is the Airstream. My flapper valve is right about here inside the blow stick, and in order to access it, take this out, you actually take this part and this part in a vise or something, and the whole stock piece screws out and you have access inside there. If you don't like the Airstream, the other thing with the Airstream is they have the oval, which for me is a little more comfortable. Some people don't like it. I've seen generally pretty good results with moose valves if you get it set up right. Some people I've seen on moose valve get like turned sideways or upside down or backwards or something, and then you have all sorts of issues getting it reset up. But yeah, there's a couple different options out there. Whatever option you choose, make sure it works for you. Probably the worst option is like the old-fashioned style with just like a little piece of leather or rubber right here, because every time you're putting it in and out of the stock, you have a chance of knocking it crooked a little bit, and then you're back to adjusting it. So yeah. The other place that you might run into issues, if you've got a hide bag, of course, there's the option of seasoning. If you have a synthetic bag, most of those come with zippers. The zippers tend to wear out after a while, so checking the zipper. In any kind of bag, anywhere that it wiggles a lot, typically at the base where there's stocks or like right here, those are places that I've seen just seams start to wear open. So check those. And if the bag itself, like the zipper or like a seam is busted, replace the bag. It's absolutely not worth trying to repair. If you need a repair, like you have a gig tonight and you don't have a bag on hand, there's like super glue and duct tape and stuff can work in a pinch, but it's I've only done that once and it was a very uncomfortable gig. So bag's tight, check. Second test is hemp connections. So we'll start with our stocks, making sure everywhere that air, the first thing that air is going to try to do is escape the bag, then it's going to try to escape around a pipe. So if I can wiggle this and it moves with one hand, it's too loose. If it takes 2 hands to move, I'm okay. So that's 2 hands. That's pretty good. Get my drones back in here and see what's going on there. So start with the base. That feels a little loose. I might. Yeah, I can move that. I can move that with one hand. So I'm going to re-hemp the base stock. Get the others in there. That's pretty good. And outside tender. Yeah, I can move that with one hand too. So 2 stocks. Need an adjustment here. Just take this guy out. All right, starting with the base. First thing, all stocks always use waxed hemp. There's a time and a place for unwaxed hemp. It is very rare. Some people prefer it on slides in certain instances. Generally, you're going to want to use wax hemp. Wax hemp is as good or better, and it is an absolute necessity anywhere that you might have moisture ingress, like somewhere close to the bag. So let's get this guy going. I always start with the line down and then around and over. And then a couple wraps around. It wasn't too much, so I'm just gonna do like 3-4 winds. And then the next trick is to compress it in before I put it in the stock. So let me show you that. So I'm gonna take the stock here. I've got these 2 old scrap pieces of wood. This was actually like a stave from a chair back or something. Another piece of wood just to compress it between the 2 and roll it down nice and tight. And that gets these just a little flatter before I put them into the stock, and saves it all bunching up down here close to the ferrule, which is a problem. You end up with these kind of cone-shaped hemp, which does not help. All right, taking this back into the stock. Let's see if I can get it in there tight. That might have been too much hemp. Try compressing it a little bit more here. And back in the stock. That's good. That'll compress a little bit over time. So I am happy with the base stock now. So same deal with my outside tenor. A little bit of hemp. And into the stock. That's definitely a 2-hand job now. All right. Happy with the stocks. Also worth checking, chanter stock always. I'm using 3 different chanters right now, but I'll check one. Once again, should be 2 hands. And ideally, you should be able to grab it up here. Best practice always, of course, if you're grabbing it down here, wooden chanters will snap if you grab them down here. Plastic chanters give a little bit, but you know, bad habits, right? So that's okay. I'm gonna leave that like that. Keep it kept. Second spot that air might escape would be around slides. First, I'll check the top base slide. This should be probably a 2-hand job. Most people don't use this one as a point of adjustment. Generally, you're going to want to just have it set right at the hemp line. Shouldn't move with one hand. Or you should be able to move this slide with one hand. Right? So that you can see the chip in my ferrule is moving. So that's this joint's about right. This should be movable with one hand, but if I'm not trying to move it, it should hold still, right? So if I'm holding it like this and this starts sliding down, it's going to slip while you're playing and then you'll be out of tune. But if I can't, kind of set it against my knee and move it with one hand, then it's going to take 2 hands to move it while you're trying to tune, and that's also a problem. So this is about right. I can move it with one hand. It didn't slip while picking it up. That one did slip, so that's a little too loose. Let's try this one. That one's okay. So middle tenor is a little loose. I personally like a little bit of Teflon on the outside. It makes it a little more slippery. And so you can get a little bit more airtight, actual tightness of the joint with it still being movable with one hand. It's also, Teflon's quite thin, so that last layer can give you finer adjustments. I've seen people use dental floss, especially that like really fine dental floss that has like the nice minty flavor to it, is that's thinner than hemp. This is the one place that I have seen people like unwaxed hemp as well. Unwaxed hemp tends to be just a little spongier, so it'll give a little bit, kind of expand to hold, but also give when you're moving it. Experiment, see what works for you, but I am going to take the same method of adjustment for that, and then we'll check reeds next. All right, slides are all hemped up, pipes are back out of the bag, and lo and behold, with all my wiggling around, I found this when I pulled my middle tenor out. Little lifeline here ties the hemp in the stock to the hemp in the reed, just so you don't lose it. But this was too loose. If it came out with just all the wiggling that I was doing around, it probably was not in there tight enough. So that'll be one I'm going to re-hemp here in a second. General rule of thumb, every reed should be able to support the pipe it's attached to. So chanter reed, I picked up the whole chanter by the reed. I'm doing okay there. I know, pushing the reed in, taking the reed out, you're gonna have to make some adjustments for tuning. A lot of times if your reed has got a really sharp pitch and you're trying to bring it down, you're pulling the reed out and pulling the reed out and pulling the reed out, and eventually it's just sitting in there. Now you're gonna be losing air around the outside of the reed. It's gonna go around the reed, through the seat, and out your chanter. Add some more hemp if you need to pull it out, more than just a little bit. Or unless you're, some chanters have the threaded seats that are gonna hold on just a little bit better now. So same rule for drones. Here's the one that came loose. I'm gonna re-hemp that one anyways. Bass is gonna be maybe the hardest to do that with. Let's try. Yep, it holds. So I'm gonna re-hemp this reed seat here. With the hemp, this is all kind of chaotic on here, but a lot of people will do, you want to try to match the reed seat. So this one actually will need to be slightly conical. A lot of people will put 1 or 2 strands right down here by the opening, and maybe 4 or 5 strands right up here, and keep adding until you figure out that conical shape, and then fill everything in the middle in. Figuring out, okay, this is tight, that's tight. This is, more, this is thicker than that, and fill in that slope there in the middle. Nice and tight in there. All right, last test is, are the reeds calibrated? Calibrated means taking the same amount of air, same pressure, right? So a good standard check would be test the drones first and make sure they all cut off at or very nearly to the same point. So I'll try that first. So you hear my tenors cut off right together. Bass was maybe just a little bit more open. I'm going to close down the bass just a touch. Some people like the bass to be maybe just that much more open, but probably not quite as much more open as I had it. If you squeeze as hard as you can and you can't cut them off, you're taking too much air in your drones. Even like the weakest player who's only started and is like a 8-year-old little girl should have a setup that is easy enough that if she goes, the drone's cut off. If she can't do that, it's gonna be, the whole setup is too strong for her. So find, even if it takes 2 arms to get together, find something that you can blow off if you need to. And by blow off, I mean squeeze so hard that the pressure slams that reed tongue shut and holds it shut so no more air is coming out. The adjustments we're gonna make, every reed's a little bit different. This is a MG reed. It's a fairly standard design with a rubber movable bridle here. tongue goes along, some tongues point the other way. There's a couple different brands out there that use an Allen key to move a pen that'll close or open or something like that. Check out, whatever documentation came with your reeds, but every adjustment should be small and even. So I'm going to just move this just barely enough that I can see it moved. And since it was taking too much air, I'm going to close the tongue down. I want less free flapping tongue right here, right? So I'm going to move it this way to close it down. If it was an inverted bass, right, I would do the same thing. I would move it to close the tongue down. I would move the rubber bit the other way. The other thing I see people do is they'll do a quick adjustment and they'll pull real hard right here, and then they won't touch the rest of it, and the whole rubber piece will be like crooked. So do it even all the way around. Back in, carefully. Blowing her back up. That was a lot closer. So I'm happy with that. Last check will be comparing where these are set up to the chanter. So ideally, that pressure that I just blew them off on should be about where the maximum pressure my chanter can take. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blow up, I'm going to tap off 2 drones, and then just compare the one remaining drone to the chanter. I'm going to blow my chanter while playing G grace notes on a low G, and I should hear my chanter start to squeak and squawk about the same point that that remaining drone cuts off. So let's test it out. So I heard my first reed squeak, and then split second after that, the chanter or the remaining drone cut off. So I would say my drones are pretty well calibrated. Another way you can do this is get yourself a pressure gauge, and you can test each pipe alone, right? Test your chanter, find where on the pressure gauge, 30, 40 PSI, maybe 50 is the maximum pressure. Then take out your chanter, put on your drones, and set up each one so that they're cutting off together right about that same PSI. So that's the maintenance test. My pipes are well maintained. I had a couple little things I had to do today, and so I'm happy with them now. We'll move on to the next video, which is going to be blowing, and then the last video of this section will be, of course, tuning, because those are the 3 key sections of good tone. All right, thanks for watching, and make sure your bagpipes are in good shape, guys. It's absolutely key, foundational part of being a good piper. So take care.
Thanks for joining again this week, everybody. As a refresher, we have been talking about step 2 of 3 about being a great bagpiper. That is having a good sounding instrument. And of that step, we're talking about part 1, maintain your pipes. Check on your airtight bag, tight hemp, and calibrated reeds. That's it. Maintain your pipes. Have a great week, guys. Take care.